to the Mixorcist. Hey everybody, welcome to the Mixorcist. How you doing, CW?
I'm doing great, EB. Happy New Year, dude. This is our first one of the year, right?
Yes, it is, indeed. We took a little break. And
did you get any horror movie watching or anything done over the holidays or what?
I sure did. After the Christmas rush, I went back to the classics. I went and I did The Shining.
Oh,
great party, isn't it?
It's always good, isn't it?
But I've been studying a lot about that film over the years, and people realize how groundbreaking that film was on in a lot of ways. It was one of the first films to use prominent use of the Steadicam. So
really,
yeah, I actually did.
Is that for the Danny Big Wheel scenes in the on the carpeted, psychedelic carpeted hallways?
Like everything, like when they're walking through the hotel, when they're on the stairs.
Good point.
Yeah, I did this seminar Q&A with Garrett Brown, who was the inventor of the Steadicam, and he operated the camera also in the movie. And he had all kinds of crazy stories. Like, did you know the Overlook Hotel, they show it from the outside, that's the Timberline Lodge in Mount Hood, Oregon. So they used that, but only for the exterior shots. And
really?
Some of the exterior shots are actually a scale model in a backlot north of London.
No
at L Street Studios, which is where that they filmed all of the interior scenes for the hotel.
No,
so that is one big elaborate set. Absolutely.
It's almost heartbreaking to know that you can't actually go and hang out in the grand room where it's like all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. That's too bad.
Like, check the first scene out when he walks into the hotel to go to his to the interview, and if you follow the path of his feet, right? Like as he's walking towards that front desk, you could see on the floor, there's like a seam. You could see that they've like laid down decals and the seams are just slightly ever so coming up. Yeah. There's just like little clues there. Like even the hedge maze was totally constructed in that studio at Elstree. It was styrofoam. Like the snow was all styrofoam. Yeah. And the lights were like these 1,000-watt light bulbs. So it was like a total fire hazard. He said that they'd never be able to do it today. Right? But yeah,
that's funny. If you get a chance, I checked out a movie called His House. It's either on Netflix or it's on Prime. I can't remember. And it's a story about some people who are emigrating to London, almost like refugee kind of emigrating, because they're leaving something behind, some dark secret. And it follows them in the form of ghosts that occupy their flat. And the first 2/3 of it is all like really good, dark, creepy jump scares and like deep psychological stuff. And then at the end, they go all crazy CGI on it. The ending's a little bit disappointing. It's still worth a watch. It's just fascinating to me how it doesn't matter how many horror movies you see, we're still obsessed by the unknown, right? Think about the fact you're looking at a flat LCD panel on the wall and it's giving you those lower back cold shivers. Like it's so creepy. So it's a good watch if you want a different take on the standard there's a ghost in my house kind of story. It's really good. The ending is just, they went over the top. And that's my big thing with horror movies now, is that you can do anything with CGI, doesn't mean you should do it, but worth a watch.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Great film. Amazing film.
Oh.
Yeah, the ending is a little over the top, but it's also funny.
You remember yeah, that's the thing. It was a little bit funny, but not like witty in the sense that you get like Reanimator kind of funny, like a lot of tongue-in-cheek humor. But anyway, should we talk plugins or what?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We have.
What's new? What do we got?
We've got Acustica Audio's latest, which is called Blond. And Blond is a suite of EQs and compressors and preamps, but it's all from various gear.
Right on.
As far as I can tell, it's all Italian-made gear. Like I think one of them must be a Benson, like a Benson EQ.
Yes. Now, so here's my impressions of it so far, and then I want you to give yours. This is probably the first Acustica product where the different preamp models are significantly different. Like you can choose them as a tonal color in your toolbox. Whereas previous versions, think like say pink or even camel, you're twisting the knob and you're kind of like, I think I hear a difference. I want to hear a difference. Therefore I hear a difference, but what I'm going to demonstrate, I don't know about you, is that you can actually use them as tone shapers, which is really different. Do you want to walk the gang through the various plugs?
Yeah,
just real quick, do an overview. You down?
Sure.
I think you hurt my head real bad.
The first plugin is the EQ plugin, and that comes with two models of EQ. The first one is very clean. I would say kind of a mastering Sontec style EQ. And that would be EQ A. And you've got your basic high shelf mid with you've got a high that you can go either bell or mid. And I think that's fixed at 20 kilohertz, and the bell is
and
fixed.
There's a 14, which is a bizarre choice, but yeah.
It is. 14 is a nice frequency, though. We don't see that a lot. So you get your high mids, which you choice of three frequencies, 1.4 kilohertz, 2.6, and 5.5. All of that's a bell, and you can go from narrow to wide. At the bottom, same thing with the low mids, although you get 180, 350, and is that 660? And then
I think so, yeah.
Bandwidth control. You get the low end, which is not a shelf. You get either wide or narrow. And I think that the narrow is at 70 hertz, and the wide, I can't really read it from here. Is that 45? I think it's 45.
I think it was either 40 or 45. I'm looking at your minimized version here, but we'll verify that in a minute.
Yeah. Input trim, of course, which affects harmonics, but I should note that in order for that to happen, you need to engage one of the preamps. And the preamps, you can decide from line preamp on this or mic preamp. Now, the line preamp is very flat. That's got a very even response. You're pretty much just getting the harmonics, whereas the mic tends to have a bit of low and also high roll-off. It sort of beefs the signal up a bit and focuses it more on the mids. You have a high-pass filter, low-pass filter, and the output. That's for the A model. The B model I'll show you very quickly, which is 4 bell curves. There's no shelves on these, so it's just high, mid, low, and low mid, wide or narrow, and then a lot of choices of frequency, actually, quite a few, more than you'd get on an Eve, say. And what else is, I guess that's all there is to the EQ plugin. There is a compressor plugin. Compressor plugin has, your input trim and, of course, your preamp, which I'll just engage that for the hell of it. Threshold, attack, release, the infamous SH mod, the filter, which is a high-pass filter for the detector circuit. And is it 5 different compressors? Yeah, there's 5 different ones. 1, 2, 3 compressors, limiter. I think when they go red on there, it means that it's program dependent or something. I don't know. I haven't actually read the manual for this yet. It's so new, so it's hard to tell, right? Okay, so another plugin that they have is called the Premix plugin. And the Premix plugin is basically another set of EQs and preamps. And it's supposed to come from some concept of premixing, which I'm not exactly sure what that means, but it gives you 5 additional EQs to choose from. This one, which I believe is based on the Benson because it says BSN. Really nice, solid state. 2 of these AVX. Again, I'm not sure what the gear is, but these are all very different. Like just switching EQ models, it's not even just the curves that change. It's like the entire character of the sound
totally
changes. And the same with these preamps here. These preamps tend to be a little more colored. You get, especially when you get down here to the custom ones. Some of these, one of them, maybe I could show some graphs or something, but one of them is, it's got a lot of high end and a lot of low end roll off. Another one has a lot of mids. Another one's a bit scooped. And you could actually, I took a hi-hat and I think it was the MZI or something, and the change just from the preamp alone. Yeah, that was enough really in some circumstances. You wouldn't even need to EQ. Just use that preamp. And of course you get your infamous input trim. And there is a dedicated preamp plugin as well.
Right, which is just all the pre's, no EQ, basically.
Yeah, let's see if I can find that
Same
for
option,
2 seconds here. Yeah. So there's a preamp, which has all of the EQs. So from both the EQ and the EQ premix, maybe even the compressor preamp is in here. I don't know, but lots to choose from. Again, if you choose the line, you've got like 24 channels from the same desk.
Yep.
So you can go through
subtle differences. Like
subtle differences.
You wouldn't necessarily, you might pick a favorite, but it would be hard-ish to hear.
Yeah. Hard to hear, but again, some people maintain that those subtle differences between the phase and frequency responses of a console is part of what gives you that sound. So who am I to argue, right? Number 24 seems to have a bit of a bass boost.
The only reason I mentioned it is that compared to the bottom two, which will create, especially the bottom one, creates big differences in the tone, don't expect the top ones to really shake up your world. They're just your standard variations between channels, kind of line preamps, if I have it right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the more drastic tone shaping definitely happens in the custom section when you want to get creative with that sort of thing. So I've got a mix set up here. I just maybe I won't play with the plugins so much, but just show you that I'm running a lot of instances for one thing. It is a fast machine, but I pretty much have done this entire mix using Blond and not much else. So
right.
Blinding star,
it's got EQ on the kick,
shining closer beyond from where you.
One of the cool EQs on the snare.
Coming up from behind.
Some EQ on the reverb return.
Faster than what was once a dream in your mind.
EQ on the toms. I went for the Benson there.
Yep.
Benson, by the way, made the Echo Rec unit, that famous Echo unit.
Of course. The Jimmy Page special.
So here's a preamp only that I've used on the overheads. But I must have... Yeah, I've also got the EQ on the overheads. A lot of top end from this Model B, whatever that is. Way up at 20 kilohertz. Let's hear the difference here. Off. On.
Oh, yeah.
So that's putting it right where you need to, right?
Yep.
Piece of a shadow that hits you in the dark.
Bass, just a simple EQ. A little bit of low end. A lot of like 1 kilohertz, 1.2 kilohertz. Let's listen to that. Nothing? On. Very tight EQ, this Model B. And the Model B actually will go fairly narrow. You'll notice that I've got the bandwidth pretty wide here. So you can get pretty narrow with it, which is nice, because you can't always do that. I think I'm just using the high pass here for some of the bass synth stuff. Yeah, guitars have the same that kind of Sontech style, that really clean EQ. Lead vocal has 2 instances. So lead vocal has, again, that Vincent EQ, which is just sweet. And it's easy to operate. There's no frequencies to select, right? So it's got that EQ, and then also, I think, a little bit of compression on it. And I've got that intensity light working, too.
Yeah, I see that. Which I don't know if that's supposed to indicate clip or if that just indicates saturation goodness.
Sorry there?
Well, no, I was just curious if that intensity light indicates clip or saturation. I didn't really find any clipping when the light activates. In fact, it's hard to make it not light up. But I think it's just indicating that perhaps you're engaging the circuit in a way that's introducing harmonics. So, but I want to verify that with the manual.
Definitely, I think as with all Acustica products, you do want to read the manual because there are usually tons of things that you didn't know about it. Little that's tricks, right. Little preamps that can give you some magic there.
Totally,
a lot under the hood.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, man, that's me. My impressions of it were like, hey, if I can do an entire mix using basically not much else other than this suite, then I think we've got a winner, right?
I tend to agree. I'll share mine now. Let me know when you can see me. Every time you come in here, you're breaking my concentration. You're distracting me. So I'm going to bypass everything just so you can hear what we're starting with. All this is a 4-track mix. So it's a stereo pair of drums, which aren't the greatest sounding. They're samples, but I didn't really like the way they came out. And then there's a bass guitar, 2 guitars panned left, right. And I just sent those out to a very tight room reverb, using 2C Audio's Breeze. So let's leave the reverb in, but let's turn off all the Acustica stuff and just get a taste for it. So if I'm listening there, as I approach mixing, I would definitely want to brighten up the drums. I'd want to make them more present. I'd want to take out, there's something happening in the bass where it's a little scoopy. So there's a lot of boomy low end, but there's not a whole lot going on, on the pick attack, let's say, or the finger attack. And then the guitars are too woolly in the bottom. That needs to be fixed. And they could stand to be a little more distinct to kind of enhance the stereo spread a touch. Having said that, let's engage everything. And just listen to the difference now. I know this isn't really a true A-B, but let's just hear how this sounds instead. So it hasn't radically altered the mix, but it has cleaned some things up using nothing but the Blond components. Only compressed the drums and the bass, only used preamps or a simple EQ on the guitars. And let me walk you through some of the choices and some of the tones that we're able to get. Starting with the drums. Let's begin with, as you mentioned, the premixer. So with the premixer, all I did here, I left the EQ off, but I just went through some of the different models, and I want you to hear, if you can listen on good headphones or good speakers right now, take a listen and tell me if you can hear the differences between the models. Here we go. Tiny bit more mid-range there. Just slight variances when you're dealing with the line the line amps, right? Mm-hmm. When you switch to the custom models, hear the differences. Hear that?
Oh yeah.
Top end's just gone.
If you go over to can you do that one that says MZ, like the third from the
mid?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my favorite one. Listen to all the brightness that adds. Can you hear it? Off. On. So nice. So I really dig this, and I forget where I had it before, but let's leave that one as is. Now we can totally play with some of these EQs and get really interesting results from them.
Whoa.
Obviously way too much, but an extremely effective EQ, and they're all different flavors. This one, by the way, sounds great on vocals. Really try out the presence control on vocals. And it's quite nice. It doesn't do the same magic on drums, but it's really great on vocals. Trust me on this one. So I'm going to shut that part off and just use the preamps. And I think I was like around here somewhere. Let's move into, now what I'm doing with this is trying to drive the compressor a little harder. So let's listen to the comp. Now, the gain reduction meter on this is a little bit hard to get your head around, so let's grab, I've got some presets here. So this is using Lim 2 with the standard attack profile. Mixed pretty much 100% wet with a relatively, like a very quick attack, as a matter of fact. Now notice as you flip through the models, by the way, you get different control sets. Look at the attack times will change. Also, some do and some don't have a ratio. So as we flip through them, watch, this starts at like, you know, a 0.125. As we zip through the models, those attack times change. And as you zip through the models too, you'll notice that, for example, this one here,
Wow.
gives you no ratio at all. But I did want, with this particular preset, I wanted something very crushy. I don't love these gain reduction meters. I find them really hard to see. However, here's what I do love. Check this out, guys. Listen to this gorgeous high-pass filter. So here's with no high-pass filter. Listen as I open it up. Hear how the bottom end just comes back in nice and smooth, and it lets go of the aggressiveness of the compressor. So I made another preset that I just call Sick Drum Squeeze. You know, again, with Acustica compressors, I find they're slippery and smooth, but they don't necessarily have the punch and grab that you would always want from a compressor, but they're getting better every day. Let's listen to this preset. We'll go back to this one and then compare it. Switch it. So this is doing less smearing and just trying to reinstate some of that punch. So the only changes I would make there really is maybe back off the wet control a touch. This is using limiter 1, which between this and this one were my two favorite models, I think. These are not aggressive compressors, but they're nice and they're smooth. So if you're looking for smooth, great. I found on drums they maybe weren't as you know, I tend to want like a distressor type vibe or an 1176 type vibe. Maybe this won't get you there, but it's still really good.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was able to get some. I was able to get quite a bit of crush out of one of those models. I had to go looking for it, but like just in terms of like you're saying, you're right. Maybe not necessarily like that fast FET or distressor kind of upfrontness, but man, crush and like big, it definitely can do. Yeah,
I agree. Big it can do for sure. The only problem I noticed that the threshold control, it's like a little bit. Oops, too much. Like it literally, it's not linear in the way that it pushes into the ceiling. And so you got to be really patient with the control. And also when you hit the point where it's crushing hard, it's smearing too much. And so if you go even a little too far, the attacks become almost clicks, right? All those snare hits become undesirable clicks. So you're either going to have to back off the wet control or back off the threshold. Let's also check out the EQ. So for this one, I used EQ A, and the bottom half I didn't engage because all I wanted was top here. So I think I went with the 20 shelf, and did I even add? Yeah, I added a touch at whatever this is, 1 point something.
Yeah, 1.4.
Just for some body. Let's listen without and then with. Without. With. Let's exaggerate it just a touch so you can get a flavor. All this is doing is bringing it out of what I call the basement, where before it sounded like someone stuffed a rag into your ears kind of thing when you were listening to it. This just kind of opens it up, which is all I wanted. If you accentuate these too much, they get really, really peaky. And I'll show you some examples of the B equalizer in a few minutes. Let's then open up the bass. With the bass, I had a different problem. This bass with no EQ and no compression was run through a bass amp model. It's a little too non-distinct. I'd really like to get a little bit more of the attack out of there. So what I did was, first of all, threw some compression on it. Not a ton. There's no way to bypass this without really So there's a tiny accentuation in the mid-range there, not a ton, but it's just smoothing it out. So again, I didn't want anything seriously aggressive. What I am interested in is bringing out the attack. And so I went into the B compressor and grabbed myself a little bit of a boost at 700, and then another tiny boost. Actually, I left it off. The rest of these are off. Nope, that's not true. Looks like I added something. No, this is bypassed. So disregard. Right now, this is bypassed. So just listen for the changes on and off here. Here, I had a little more trouble getting what I wanted out of the bass. So this may not be the first choice when you're trying to control the low end. We all know bass can be really, really fussy. But I also chose one of the line preamps to try and help shape the tone a bit. So you're gonna have to listen careful here. Let's shut both equalizers off. Let's just start with, this is number 8. Take a listen. Without. It's small. You notice it more when I shut it off. So I happened to notice that it was taking out a little bit of the low bass, maybe 80 to 100 we might be talking about here, that was clouding things up. It wasn't enough of a cut, and I think if I really wanted to make this EQ work, I'd spend more time trying to find that frequency where I don't want to subtract the low end, but I do want to clarify it, if that makes sense. But I did add a peaking filter at around 700 or 750, whatever that is, to try and solve the lack of attack. So let's listen. This is without. And in. So you hear that no matter which way you turn,
can you hear how narrow that gets? It's almost like a resonant
totally
filter.
Narrow.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Which is great. What I found was there was no perfect spot where I wasn't introducing some phasiness that also got the job done that I wanted. So I think I'd still have to go and find a cut frequency somewhere to clarify it. But let's listen in the context, well, first without the mix and then with. So here we are, no EQ, and see if you can hear the change. With, oh, pardon me. So all of a sudden now it's more mid-rangey, which I think honors the amp a little bit and honors the pickup a little bit more than with no equalizer. So it's making the change I wanted, but let's hear how that pans out in the mix. So without the equalizer. Yep. And with.
You talking to me? You talking to me? I'm the only one here.
Let's move on to guitars really quickly. So I've got two guitars, pan, hard, left, right, no compression. And in fact, the first guitar you're going to hear, the left side, has no EQ. So the EQ's here, but they're disengaged. They're not doing anything, right? So all of the gains are set to 0. We could just as easily bypass them and leave them off. Let's listen to just what the premixer does to this guitar. So I'll go with, so this is your favorite one, Eric, third from the right. But I also pulled out some of the woolliness in the bass using this cool little EQ here, this Benson EQ, and just gave it a little bit of top shimmer and just edged the mids a bit. And this is all I'm using. No other equalizers, nothing. Let's have a listen. Let's go fully without. With. Right, so if you've mixed a lot of electric guitars, you can imagine how that's going to move it out of the bass space a little bit and just find its own pocket. But hear how much of this is the preamp as opposed to the EQ. So listen with me as I shut it off and turn it back on. This is with the preamp model. Without the preamp model. Again, you hear it more when it goes away. Let's shut it off. It just focuses it a little bit, and let's see what the EQ is doing here. That's obviously making the biggest change, but it does exactly what I want it to. Brings the guitar attack out and the grit out, and it reduces the wooliness in the low end, which is not useful. Beautiful. Let's go and listen to the right side guitar. Totally different kind of sound, more mid-rangey. And here, I am not using either the preamp or the EQ. I'm just going to use the Blond equalizer. And here again, let's listen to see if you can hear any subtle differences. Bad example. Hear that? A little more bassy, a little more closed mouth. You know what I mean? I think I settled on number 8 for this one. Clearly my favorite. Just adds a little more life to it. And then let's listen to what the equalizer is doing. All I've done here, I believe, is pulled back the bass. And on the top EQ, I've added a little bit of goodness at whatever this is. 2.6 kilohertz, right? So let's take it away. Yeah, I'm missing that presence already. And this just subtracted some of the low end. I could even go for a little more. Do I even have any of these set? Yeah, I do at 40. All right, so let's listen to the two guitar channels competing together without. So this is the original. Let's kick everything in. So in the context of the mix, it's helping make room. Without. See, it's just kind of muddy and non-distinct. And there you have it, a simple 4-track mix using these as subtle tone controls to shape things, using the inherent tonality of the preamps, the equalizers, the line amps, even the compressor adds a little bit of tonality to it. So I really enjoyed mixing with this. As I mentioned, if you do go for voice, you owe yourself a favor. Try out on the premixer. Try out this equalizer here. That treble presence has got a little bit of magic in it, and you owe it to yourself to give it a shot. So that's that.
Beautiful. Yeah, you can really hear the variety of tones, and I think that's the really cool thing about what this suite offers is the ability to go say, oh, that's not working. Next, rather than try 18 different plugins and be opening windows and stuff. You've basically got it all in one interface, which is the few plugins. And I also like the fact that, you know what, it's not an API. It's not a Neve. It's not an SSL. Sir. It's not the same old, oh, is this the one? I don't know. I always use this. It's like, I kind of love doing that mix that I did because I just mucked around until I got stuff. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And then let's just keep moving on. It was a very fast mix. I noticed I could run a lot of instances. It's very good on CPU.
Yeah.
Definitely is one of the best running Acustica plugins I think I've come across. I just kept adding instances upon instances and like not even
totally
feeling it, right? And you could take nothing but this and get something pretty good. So
totally, and it's a great tone shaper and it's a lot of fun to play with. It's got some exciting vibe to it, and it's not what it's not your standard, like you say, Neve or API sound. What do you say we throw everybody a little treat? The folks from Acustica have offered. If you're going to buy this in the next 3 days, in addition to their introductory pricing, if you don't already have coupon codes for loyalty discounts, they're taking 5% right off the top for anyone watching this video for the next 3 days from product launch. So you've got, 72 hours, whatever, to grab these codes and just, an extra 5% can't hurt. That's on top of the sale price, but it's not stackable with your discount codes, just so you know.
Right.
All right. So if you don't have any loyalty coupons yet, you're new to Acustica, this is a great time just grab a couple extra bucks back. Why not? And those will be in the show notes.
Excellent.
So thanks to Acustica for that. Great job, guys. I like what they're doing. I like that they're coming up with things that are not your standard classic vintage labels, but instead they're making boutique things so you can sample different kinds of hardware from around the world, man. This is really exciting stuff.
Oh, it really is. And because of their process actually is sampling, right? It's not modeling.
Yeah.
It's not someone in there
Right.
with a scope going like, oh, I think it sounds sort of like this. And their process actually runs impulses, dynamic impulses through the gear, and it captures the response as well as that technology works. It does work very well. And so what they're doing, they're preserving this gear in my mind, right? Like 100 years from now, you might not be able to find a working Benson EQ, but
That's a good point.
you might have this. I don't know about 100
A little bit
years.
of history.
Maybe it might be like 20 years, right? And who's got it? Like some of this stuff is unobtainium, right? It might exist somewhere in the world, but are they selling it? You know,
You're not
they
getting
have
one.
some. There's one of their EQs that they sampled on the Ultramarine. I think there are only 6 copies of it in existence on the whole planet, like the Fairchild EQ.
Oh yeah, which is a beautiful EQ, right?
Yeah, so they're kind of doing a public service, I think, to the audio community.
In a way,
sense.
It's a good point. And so just to recap, I felt like this was really strong on guitars. I liked it on vocals. I felt with bass, maybe reach for something else just for some variety, but worth a try. And we felt on drums, the compression, if you're willing to work for it, you'll get a really nice vibe from them. And the EQs, these are great EQs.
Yeah, totally. Just adding a lot of character, personality. I'm finding, sometimes, I'll EQ it a bit. It's still not characterful enough.
Yeah.
So I'll add this plugin and this plugin. That premix plugin, that's just like instant vibe. If you find something on that works, and then find a good preamp that works with it, maybe give it a bit of input gain. It's like, that's like 80% of the battle, right?
It is. And I feel like if you're willing to experiment with just those preamp models and those basic EQs, you'll be rewarded with some great tones. And so grab the trial and learn it, spend a little time with it and see what it does and doesn't do. And see if you like it, see if it's got a place in your mix rack, because it's, there's definitely some tones in there, man. I've been having fun with it.
It's great to get our hands on something new and just, see what to do with it, what should be, I think you have some very good ideas of what should be done with Blond, and I'd like to know what they are.
You know what I love is if you watch A Few Good Men, also with Jack Nicholson, first of all, his foil in the movie, the Tom Cruise character, is named Danny. So it's always a kick to hear him say Danny 20 years later or whatever it was. But also there's a point where he says something really similar to what he said in The Shining. It was either the line about, what do you think should be done with them? Or I think you have some very definite ideas. He says almost the same line in A Few Good Men in the scene where they're all sitting having lunch outside, kind of in the middle of the movie. You got to check it out. Great scene.
Awesome. Got to look for that one.
All right.
Well, that's
Thanks
a wrap,
everybody
man.
for tuning in. Tell your friends. I hope you enjoyed it. Send us your comments. As always, thank you so much for checking out the Mixorcist.